How do you become an architect when you never get a day of conventional architectural education? How do you emphasize modernism and functionalism in a design philosophy? How do you design complex spatial circulation while maintaining the appearance of simplicity? How can architecture be devoid of ornamentation, where aesthetics are derived from straight lines? Can architects design 500 houses at a time? The answer perhaps lies in knowing the life of one of the most celebrated architects of Pakistan. Today we are looking at the life and architecture of Zameer Mirza Rizki, one of the pioneer architects of Pakistan. While different architects take different approaches to creating buildings that have loud and bold statements, the works of Zameer Mirza Rizki seem to master the art of simplicity and silence. Rizki, as he was fondly addressed, was truly an institution in himself. He belonged to that category of self-taught professionals who were always eager to learn, experience, and explore. Usually, the observers scale his worth as a professional through the designs and schemes that he authored and implemented. There is no doubt that many of these building complexes are still landmark structures in their respective context. Rizki had a modernist and functionalist design philosophy. He believed in an architecture devoid of ornamentation, where the aesthetics are derived from straight lines. When you move through a space designed by Rizki, you are made to experience simplicity. Rizki has mastered the art of creating spaces that dare to say force you to be meditative, to be present. This trendsetter architect did not have a conventional entry into the field of architecture, and maybe that's because his whole life has been very unconventional. To understand his work, we need to understand where he comes from. His story began in 1926 in Delhi, India. Rizki was born in June 1926 in Delhi to a family of Mughal descendants. His father, Pak Mirza Rizki, was a famous cricket captain of Aligarh and also a lecturer at the Muslim University of Aligarh, and his mother, Aisha Tawqir, was a pious lady homemaker. In 1929, at the age of 4, his family shifted to Hyderabad, Deccan. He did his matriculation from Aligarh University and his higher grade diploma in painting from Bombay and Madras. Thereon, he attended a short course on architecture in the Government School of Arts and Crafts, Hyderabad. Early in the year 1949, after the fall of the Hyderabad princely states, he migrated to Karachi, Pakistan with his family. His family consisted of 2 brothers and sisters. The post-migration period was hard. This small family lived in PIB colony, and Zameer Mirza Rizki worked at Pak Construction Company for many years from there on. His earlier passion for painting had turned into architectural drawings on his mother's prodding, who forbade him to make human figures. He had chronic asthma from his childhood, and when he was under an attack, he used to put fire to his paintings in frustration, so there is no record of his paintings as such. In 1954, he married his cousin Saida, who bore him 3 kids, 1 daughter and 2 sons. Shima is an architect. Rizki was a jovial, pious-hearted person who was quick to lose temper but very loving and kind-hearted. He enjoyed watching English movies in cinema halls and reading books in his spare time. In 1951, he joined Merz Randal Vatan Pakistan as chief designer and got involved in important government projects such as the Naval Dry Dock and later the Karachi Master Plan. He worked 5 more years at Merz Randal Vatan Pakistan. That was till the company departed from Pakistan. Architect Rizki then established his architectural practice in 1956. His launch of private practice with a huge project of residential houses. The first ever flat project, Al-Azam Square, was designed by him for Rukun Uddin and builders, and then the Hussain De Salve building project in Garden East Karachi. At that time, his office consisted of a single room, a garage in his own house and a couple of people as staff members, which later on developed into an office of 40 people in a few years. His architectural education did not happen in classrooms, but in the actual spaces he visited. He kept detailed sketchbooks of all his work. One of the biggest qualities that sets him apart in the world of architecture is he spent a lot of his time learning not from the masters of architecture, but from their creations. The world's biggest architects to influenced him deeply were Frank Lloyd Wright and Richard Neutra. Zameer Rizki provided us with a leap in the process of the evolution of our architecture. His designs were typically marked with some very identifiable aspects of modern architecture. His designs were characterized by clean lines with minimal, sleek, consistent surfaces that express his minimalist approach for the very first time in this region. Floor-to-ceiling windows were designed to flood his modernist buildings with natural light. Low, horizontal roofs and broad overhangs are prominent features of his design. His buildings rarely include structures that do not respond to functionality, responsive. His buildings were executed with modern building materials of his time. It was Rizki Sahib who introduced the minimalist approach toward design, which was subsequently further strengthened and pursued by a large number of architects and followers in Pakistan.
मेरी फर्स्ट जॉब भी रिस्की साहब रिस्की कंपनी में थी। रिस्की साहब के साथ मैंने अपना करियर स्टार्ट किया और हमने सबसे पहले जो बिल्डिंग की वो सिविक सेंटर थी। माशाल्लाह 3 साल में वो बिल्डिंग कंप्लीट हुई। उस वक्त की वो आइकॉनिक बिल्डिंग थी पूरे पाकिस्तान में। और एज अ जूनियर मैंने स्टार्ट किया, मगर रिस्की साहब ने जो मेरे साथ दिया उस्तादों की तरह, उन्होंने मेरे सब्जेक्ट पर मेरे लिए बुक्स जमा की। मुझे लगाया कि आपने पढ़ना है और पढ़ेंगे तो आगे बढ़ेंगे। मैं बिल्कुल इंजीनियरिंग के बाद एक कोरा था, जैसे कहते हैं, कुछ भी नहीं आता था, मगर उनकी सपोर्ट से, उनकी नॉलेज से मैंने फ़ायदा उठाया और माशाल्लाह मैं आगे चलते चलते इस स्टेज पर आया। अगर मैं कहूँ कि रिस्की साहब में अंदर एक बड़ी अच्छी क्वालिटी ये थी, उस्ताद थे वो बहुत अच्छे। उनकी अपनी नॉलेज थी, वो अपनी नॉलेज से दूसरों को फ़ायदा पहुँचाते थे। कभी ऐसा नहीं हुआ उन्होंने अपनी नॉलेज को कंटेन किया हो।
A lot of his early works were a series of houses. His houses are very intelligently designed, with a grand outlook of warmth and simplicity. His designed houses have privacy and individual spaces, having a focal point connecting the house from the ground floor to the roof. He was passionate about house design and designed more than 2,500 houses all over Pakistan. His designs were amazing, never old, or one can say he designed the houses in such a way that they were never out of fashion. Open spaces, wide openings in the front and living, and daylight consumption are the main attributes. And the genius part is having all this with the simple concept of achieving the requirements of the household. Another strong aspect of his designed houses is the simplicity of the structure devised, which consisted of a flat slab without any hanging beams. His residences stood out. They were simple, neat, and had very elegant proportions. He gave special attention to staircase design. In DHA, he has designed 500 houses at a time, which is a record. The most significant of these was his own house. In 1963-64, he acquired a plot of land in C.P. Berar Society of 1,000 square yards and designed a house for his family. A masterpiece in itself, his house had unique features and was inspired by the principles of Frank Lloyd Wright's architecture. It was built on a jutting hillside by cutting the layers through it and was based on 3 levels. The uniqueness of this house was that every room had a view, either the clear sky or the garden ponds below. He was a master in integrating the built structure with the landscape. It was as integral as he believed. He was a trendsetter in bungalow design. In the 70s, his style of houses got so popular that later on it came to be known as Rizki designed bungalows. their lack of academic degrees, his knowledge and experience were so vast that his peers, as well as his seniors, respected him. His command was not only confined to architecture, but other fields too. His religious knowledge, political know-how, and literary inclination took him to every stratum of life. He was admired by whomever he met. He was a man of humility who was always at ease talking to anybody, be it a leader, a laborer, or a student. He could sit for hours with them and discuss architecture and their projects, guiding them on book references and with anecdotes of his life.
मेरा नाम शाह मुनिस अहमद है, मैं आर्किटेक्ट हूँ। रिस्की साहब के साथ मेरा ताल्लुक़ सन 1981 में हुआ, जब दाऊद कॉलेज से ग्रेजुएशन करने के बाद मैंने उनके दफ्तर में मुलाजमत इख्तियार की। रिस्की साहब सिर्फ एक आर्किटेक्ट नहीं थे, बल्कि एक दौर था और एक ज़माना था, और जो उनकी कंट्रीब्यूशन आर्किटेक्चर में है वो उस दौर के किसी आर्किटेक्ट की नहीं है। रिस्की साहब बुनियादी तौर पे फॉर्मली डिग्री याफ्ता या सनद याफ्ता जिन्हें हम कहते हैं वो नहीं थे, लेकिन वो एक ज़िंदा मिसाल हैं कि जिस आदमी में शौक़ हो, जज्बा हो, लगन हो, जुनून हो, कुछ पा लेने की, कुछ हासिल करने की तमन्ना हो, तो वो अपनी मेहनत और इस बुनियाद पे किस दर्जे तक पहुंच सकता है। रिस्की साहब पाकिस्तान के उन लोगों में शुमार होते हैं जिन्होंने एक गहरी छाप फ़न अम्मारी में छोड़ी है। रिस्की साहब एक सेल्फ मेड इंसान थे। चूँकि मुझसे उनका ख़ास ताल्लुक़ था, उनकी शफ़क़त मोहब्बत बहुत ज़्यादा थी मुझ पे, तो जब उन्होंने अपना दफ्तर कायम किया तो वो पीआईबी कॉलोनी में था, एक कमरे में। लेकिन वहाँ से उन्होंने जब सफ़र शुरू किया अपना, तो एमआरवीपी के दफ्तर किमाड़ी वो जाया करते थे और पैदल जाते थे। वापसी के अंदर एक पैरामाउंट इनकॉर्पोरेशन बुक स्टोर की दुकान थी, जहाँ वो बैठ के किताबों की वरगर्दानी करते थे, और वो जो ओनर था दुकान का, वो दुकान उनके लिए खुला रखता था कि एक बच्चा आएगा जिसको शौक़ है पढ़ने का, और बिजली के खंबे के नीचे वो किताबों को पलटते जाते थे और देखते जाते थे। उनकी एक फ़ोटोग्राफिक मेमोरी थी, तो जो चीज़ वो एक दफ़ा देख लेते थे, पढ़ लेते थे, उनके जहन में वो नक्श हो जाती थी। रिस्की साहब ने जब काम शुरू किया तो उस ज़माने में कराची शहर में ताजुद्दीन भामानी साहब का दौर था, नकवी सिद्दीकी थे और प्यार अली मेहर अली थे। रिस्की साहब ने शुरू में जिस तरह के काम होते हैं, लेकिन इस दौरान वो मुतासिर हुए फ्रैंक लॉयड राइट से और नीचर न्यूट्रा से। तो उस इंटरनेशनल स्टाइल की जो खसूसियात थी रिस्की साहब ने वो अपनाई, यानी प्लान फंक्शनल हुआ करते थे, स्ट्रेट लाइन में होते थे, ऑर्नामेंटेशन उसके अंदर कोई नहीं होती थी। जब जो स्टील ग्लास का इस्तेमाल बहुत ज़्यादा होता था और ओपन प्लान होते थे, तो उस ज़माने में जो घर बनते थे वो चूँकि हम मुतासिर थे, जो हमारा एंग्लो इंडियन आर्किटेक्चर कहलाता था या वेस्टर्न या कॉलोनियल आर्किटेक्चर, उसकी बुनियाद पे। लेकिन रिस्की साहब ने जब इसको अपनाया तो कराची में बल्कि पूरे पाकिस्तान में वो एक ट्रेंड सेटर बन गए, और ये एक खुशगवार तब्दीली थी।
Rizki was a man who was eloquent and knowledgeable in his subject, who could state the theories and principles and even the politics that went behind any project in Wright's work while sitting in Pakistan. He had not travelled much, and in that time the internet, though born, was in its stage of infancy, read unheard of in Pakistan in the mid-90s.
Okay. I am Shima Ahmed, architect by profession and daughter of late Zameer Mirza Rizki. I got into the field of architecture because of my father. He was my inspiration and ideal, and after 86 I joined his company, and throughout I worked with him till his passing away in 1995. While working with him, I was exposed to his personality as an architect, as a boss. But prior to that, when he was my father, how he was, I would like to say a little bit about that. He was a very fun-loving person. He was a very outgoing person, yet he was deeply religious person. And that was, and he would also take us to various books, exhibitions, art galleries, and flower shows, which inspired us, which inspired me especially and I wanted to follow in his footsteps, and that's why I became architect.
दूसरी चीज़ उसमें ये अच्छी थी, वो बुक्स जमा करते थे, बुक्स को पढ़ते भी थे और दूसरों को सिखाते थे कैसे पढ़ना है, कैसे सीखना है. मैंने उनसे बेसिक साइंसेस जिसे कहना चाहिए ना, बिल्डिंग साइंसेस होती है या बिल्डिंग टेक्नोलॉजी होती है, हर चीज़ उनसे सीखी. मैं एज अ मैकेनिकल इंजीनियर था, मगर मैं उनके साथ रह के मैंने प्लम्बिंग सीखी, मैंने फायर फाइटिंग का काम किया. हमने जो फिर उनके साथ रहते हुए मैंने एयर कंडीशन भी सीखी. बेसिक, यानी कि ये नहीं कि उन्होंने सिखाया, उन्होंने आइडिया दिया कि कैसे होना चाहिए, क्या चीज़ है. एलिवेटर्स का काम भी किया मैंने उनके साथ रहते हुए, इलेक्ट्रिकल का भी काम किया मैंने, इवन कि उन्होंने मुझे स्ट्रक्चर भी सिखाया.
He continued to design large-scale projects, and in a career spanning 4 decades, his wide spectrum of practice encompasses religious, residential, commercial, industrial, cultural, health, public building and recreational facilities, both in the public and private sectors. Awami Markaz, Pakistan, Broadcasting House, Mideast Hospital, Clifton. Mideast Hospital has been demolished, and in its place Ocean Shopping Mall has been constructed. His design philosophy was unique, and it evolved around the following beliefs. As Rizki said, the architectural art which I happen to practice has many esoteric aspects. The material tangibility aspect of this art manifests itself in the shape of a solid structure or building, whereas the spiritual aspect lies in the conceptions underlying the structure and perception of its beauty by the visitor or person experiencing the spaces. My designs are based on straight lines, as my inspirations are drawn from the holy house of Kaaba. This holy structure is the best example of grandeur and beauty in simplicity. This simple cube is determined by straight lines and right angles. Allah has endowed only humans with the ability to draw a straight line, and its perpendicular making an angle of 90 degrees. The straight line and the right angles are elementary figures, but to draw them accurately demands a high degree of intelligence and concentration in the right perspective. I aim to achieve architecture which has qualities of beauty and simplicity. My architecture is functional according to the needs, devoid of ostentatious and unnecessary ornamentation, but with an aesthetic appeal based on straight lines.
One very interesting thing I would like to share is that my father always used to say to me when I joined architecture that females cannot become architects. And I used to wonder, why does he say that? But the thing is, actually, then when I started doing practical work, then I understood why he used to say that, because one, when is practicing, he or she goes to the field and do site work and deal with the laborers, and that was not, at that time, at our times, that is the 80s and the 70s, it was not a good time for a female to be working in that field, and and that also became a challenge for me, and it was Allah was very kind enough that I always got respect from my colleagues.
He was very articulate, and hence with his knowledge and experience he penned many research papers for various seminars and conferences. Many of his articles on architectural issues in Pakistan have been published in local publications. He was also very apt in all the 5 methods of perspective rendering of architectural drawings.
रिस्की साहब की शख्सियत के मुख्तलिफ पहलू थे कि रिस्की साहब बहैसियत आर्किटेक्ट कैसे थे, रिस्की साहब बहैसियत बॉस कैसे थे, और रिस्की साहब बहैसियत एक ख़ानदान के सरबराह के कैसे थे. वो एक नहायत शफीक, मेहरबान और मोहब्बत करने वाले इंसान थे और बेहतरीन आर्किटेक्ट थे. चूँकि दौरे जदीद की चीज़ों को पढ़ना, इल्म हासिल करने का उनको शौक़ था, कसीरुल मुताल्ला शख्सियत थे, और न सिर्फ ये कि आर्किटेक्चर इस्लामिक हिस्ट्री हो उसके बारे में उनकी नॉलेज बहुत ज़्यादा थी, पौधों के बारे में उनकी नॉलेज बहुत ज़्यादा थी, करंट अफेयर्स के बारे में बहुत अच्छी तरह गुफ्तगू करते थे, कुरान और अहादीस के हवाले और इसके हवाले से वो बहुत अच्छी गुफ्तगू करते थे. बड़े मजलिसी आदमी थे. जिस महफिल में बैठते थे चारों तरफ से लोग उनके गिर्द आके जमा हो जाते थे और उनकी गुफ्तगू सुनते थे. और उनका अंदाज़ बहुत दिलचस्प था, इसीलिए वो मशहूर भी थे, लोगों में मकबूल भी थे और एक हर दिल अजीज़ शख्सियत भी रिस्की साहब की थी। रिस्की साहब उर्दू ज़बान में बहुत दिलचस्पी लगते थे, इसीलिए मैं सारी गुफ्तगू उर्दू में कर रहा हूँ। मुझे याद है ज़ियाउल-हक़ जब आए और उन्होंने सिविक सेंटर का इफ्तिताह किया तो रिस्की साहब ने उनको मशवरा दिया कि अगर आप चाहते हैं कि उर्दू ज़बान जो हमारी कौमी ज़बान है वो उसका ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा इस्तेमाल हो, तो सबसे बेहतर तरीका ये है कि आप तमाम साइन बोर्ड्स को चेंज कर दीजिए और उसे उर्दू में बना दीजिए।
Rizki Library of Architecture Books. Ever since his childhood, books have held a great significance in his life. Rizki Sahib was a voracious reader in all aspects of art and was well versed in the works of the masters of Western architects and architecture. He had a valuable and perhaps the largest personal collection of books in art, architecture, landscape and gardening.
उन्होंने बहुत कुछ मुझे सिखाया और देखा जाए वो मेरे मामू थे। बचपन से उनकी एक क्वालिटी ये थी, जब भी हमारे पास आते थे वो बुक्स लेके आते थे। खिलौने नहीं दिए उन्होंने कभी हमें खेलने के लिए, बुक्स दी। रिस्की साहब की अगर बात की जाए तो वो एक बहुत अच्छे आर्किटेक्ट भी थे, इसमें कोई शक नहीं है, एक अच्छे इंसान भी थे। उनके साथ जो बेसिक चीज़ मैंने सीखी वो ऑनेस्टी है वो, ठीक है। उन्होंने कभी किसी किस्म की डिसऑनेस्टी ना अपने साथ की, ना अपने फैमिली मेंबर के साथ की, इवन के अपने स्टाफ के साथ भी की।
Over a time, he had created a library of all architecture books available in the market for his learning and generously opened it for all students. He had read every book in the library and guided the students on which pages to refer to, a rare quality. He was an intellectual mentor for all architecture students in Karachi and some from Lahore architecture schools.
We are talking about some late 70s when Google and Amazon were not there, and perhaps the only source of information and the knowledge were few libraries like British Council, American Center, etc. And one of the most significant for architectural students was the library of Mr. Zameer Mirza Rizki. And I still remember that even we were students and he was a very renowned personality, but whenever we would go to his libraries and he's available there, then despite of his busyness and his involvements in professional activities and his personal activities, he would give maximum time to the students and would be always interested in knowing what subject we are going to find and what is our quest. And once he would know that, we are looking for a particular subject, then he would give his ideas and his vision about those. And that was the most valuable part of it. That he would speak hours and hours. Every subject of architecture, that was, whenever it came up, he would speak hours and hours on that. And that was great about it.
Professor Noman Ahmad, Dean Faculty of Architecture and Management Sciences, NED University, stated that, as a student of architecture, I viewed and valued Rizki Sahib for his quest for knowledge, availability to all who would visit his library, and complete willingness to share his time and knowledge resources with everyone, especially the students. One will have to visualize the status of times in which Rizki Sahib dwelled. There was no internet, no digital resources, no e-books, no visual archives that commoners could easily approach. The Government School of Architecture, and later the Department of Architecture at DCT, was the only school till the late 1980s in Karachi. A modest collection of books were available to students and faculty in the college. The instructors, visiting faculty, and practicing architects would mention the names of the books and magazines that were current, but almost impossible to access. In this scenario, it was the Rizki Library that came to the rescue. Students would frequently visit his library almost on a routine basis. It was very common to find the necessary books and resources, and Rizki Sahib himself, in the library. The students would discuss the topics they were exploring and the books that were new additions. Almost all the time Rizki Sahib would have read the book. He would give his views and encourage students to share their thoughts. He always gave confidence and courage to students to speak their minds. For the shy students, these encounters proved instrumental in developing their conversation skills. I trust that all of those young people, many of whom are very celebrated professionals in their own right and respect, may remember and cherish those invaluable encounters with Rizki Sahib. The family of architect Rizki has donated all his books to the Indus Valley School of Arts and Architecture so that it is preserved and can serve a maximum number of students. Mosque architecture by Rizki. Designing the mosque was a passion for Rizki, for which he rendered his services free of charge. His mosque design is one of such creations which has been widely appreciated in the seminars. Consequently, several organizations then assigned him to design and plan various mosques in their locality. His designs were based on contemporary concepts and entwined with the spirit of Islamic traditions. During the last many decades, the design of mosques in Karachi has undergone a change process. Resulting endeavors may be divided into two broad categories: those designed by architects and those designed by people themselves. Though recent designs of the latter category show a lot of variety influenced by traditions and modernity, it is the design produced by architects that needs to be documented. Rizki has a distinct attribute: the number of works done by Rizki with specific design styles, and he was considered to be an authentic and established architect with a lifetime achievement in the field of architecture.
He was always ready to do mosque designs, which he always designed free of charges.
Architect Zameer Mirza Rizki has designed more than 100 mosques in and outside Pakistan in specific design styles. The strength of Mr. Rizki's design was the simplicity of approach. He started his career like most architects in Pakistan by designing custom residences. His residences stood out. They were simple, neat, and had very elegant proportions. This simplicity and elegance of proportions adapted very well in his designs for mosques, which related to the aspirations of the middle and upper middle class of Karachi. The majority of his mosques are neighborhood mosques, and the characteristic feature of these mosques is that they are devoid of ornamentation. The mosque at the Karachi University campus is one of such creations, which has been widely appreciated in architectural seminars. Typically, the prayer halls are rectangular, with 2 levels to accommodate a maximum number of namazis, and also provide a larger volume inside the hall. The hall has narrow slit windows on either side, rising to the ceiling. On either side of the mimbar arch or arches are protruded outward in such a manner that a niche is created to allow slits along the curve of the arch for ventilation. The purpose of this detail is to avoid direct sun during Asr prayer and at the same time let the sea breeze, which essentially blows from the west, enter the hall. Outside the prayer hall is a veranda with a low ceiling. This adds to the feel of the space while entering the hall and also allows larger space at the mezzanine level. The courtyard again has a rectangular form with an entrance on 3 sides. To provide a better feeling of space and courtyard is bordered with a colonnade. The minaret is located on the right side of the prayer hall and, like the rest of the mosque, does not have any decoration or ornamentation. In Mr. Rizki's design, one finds basic constituent forms of the mosque, but the expression is quite geometric and contemporary. When we observe the design and composition of grand building complexes such as the KDA Civic Centre, we cannot ignore the existence of a tastefully designed mosque in the overall scheme. The simple but aesthetically mature composition of the Civic Centre Mosque has many interesting qualities. It breaks away from the common and relatively orthodox vocabulary of conventional dome and minaret symbolism. Wrapped in straight-line geometry, the mosque appears as a functional idiom of contemporary architectural design. Rizki Sahib was well aware of the maintenance and operation-related issues of our sacred spaces. Therefore, he kept the mosque utmost functional within the profile of rectilinear geometry and proportions. The fenestration was developed in a manner that optimum daylight would filter in the main chamber without any obstruction. The semi-open threshold space and the adjacent open platform would provide the comfort of worship to hundreds of people every day and to thousands on Fridays. We learn from our analysis that Rizki Sahib believes that mosque design should be simple. To achieve this simplicity, we have selected various shapes and forms, like a rectangle in Rizki's case. They all have avoided ornamentation and decoration, which, if used at all, had a very abstract and geometric flavor. There is no clear-cut theoretical model that one can identify in the work of Rizki Sahib other than his commitment to simplicity and sincerity. Concerning constituent forms, we observe that Rizki, while adopting a prayer hall, courtyard and minaret, opted for an abstract treatment and contemporary expression. He did not use a dome in his design, which traditionally is an essential part of the vocabulary of mosque architecture. We cannot do justice to the history of architecture in Pakistan if we fail to recognize his contributions towards the development of architecture in Pakistan. The genius architect was an institution in himself who rightly discovered the reality of his time and introduced the trend of modernity and simplicity in its true sense through his work. Thereafter the modern movement of architecture started, taking shape in Pakistan too. Only his daughter Shima followed in his footsteps and took up architecture and joined him soon after finishing her studies. His sons, Maaz and Imad, went into the field of computer and finance marketing respectively. In December 1995, he suffered severe attacks of asthma and he died peacefully at home in his wife's arms. Zameer Mirza Rizki will not only be remembered for his architectural endeavors, but also as a great human being with a strong personality.